an initiative between the Transitional Justice Institute, the Human Rights Consortium, and the Equality Coalition. And the point of these COVID conversations that we've been having is exactly that. We want to kick off these really important conversations about the impact that COVID-19 is having on the human rights of many different groups in Northern Ireland. And I think this particular event has a lot of importance, as we know that COVID-19 is having an inequitable impact on the Black Asian minority ethnic community. So to that end, you know, I'm really excited for our speakers today, and I know that they're going to make us all think a bit more about what we can do and how we can create meaningful change. So just to give a few, I suppose, housekeeping rules or housekeeping advice, not rules, we are going to be, each speaker is going, we've got 3 speakers this morning. Unfortunately, one of our speakers, Komi Abayomi, was supposed to be joining us this morning, but unfortunately he has got a family issue that he has to deal with. So we're really sorry to miss him here this morning, but I did want to draw your attention to a couple of really important opinion pieces that he has written for the Irish News, and particularly around the handing out of fines to protesters at the Black Lives Matter protests back in June, and the illegality of those. So really important, and I would encourage you all to give those a read. What we're going to do then is each speaker is going to have about 10 to 15 minutes to talk about their topic of choice. And then after that, we hope to have about 15 to 20 minutes for questions and discussion. So I would invite you all to ask questions in the chat bar or make comments in the chat bar. And after all of our contributors have finished, I will highlight some of the questions and ask you to turn off your microphone and maybe speak to those questions or comments. I also want to just introduce Helen Flynn, who is in the grid somewhere. It's just overwhelming to see so many people. There she is. Hi, Helen. Helen is from the Human Rights Consortium, and she is my partner in crime today. She is going to be handling all the technical aspects and keeping a little eye on the chat bar as well. So I will kick off with the actual event, and I'm just going to start off by giving a short overview. So evidence is mounting that COVID-19 is disproportionately affecting Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities. For example, one study shows that BAME people accounted for 63% of COVID-19 fatalities in health workers. Researchers have pointed to socio-economic factors playing a significant role in the greater exposure of BAME people to the virus. At the same time, the unjust killing of George Floyd, which was driven by deeply ingrained racial prejudice, has sparked protests all over the world, including here in Northern Ireland. Despite putting in place social distancing protocols, protesters were targeted with police fines. This policing is currently the subject of an investigation by the Police Ombudsman. Our speakers will address some of the key issues that are impacting the BME community in Northern Ireland right now, as we continue to feel the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, we've just entered into a huge economic recession, and evidence has already pointed that it's the BAME community that are going to feel the brunt of the economic harm inflicted by COVID-19. So without further ado, I am going to introduce our first speaker, James Ovomoibi. James is based in Northern Ireland, and he studied in Nigeria, Italy and the UK. He got all his degrees culminating in a PhD in laser physics. He is a committed community activist. He lectures and researches in Ulster University in the Faculty of Computing, Engineering and the Built Environment. After having served as e-learning coordinator for more than 11 years and holds several positions as visiting professor in Nigeria and Tanzania. He is currently the African Laser representative in Europe. He is the Leeds Scholar in Nigeria, the MEX Scholar in the UK, a chartered physicist, a chartered IT professional, a fellow of the Institute of Physics, the British Computer Society, and the Higher Education Academy. He is an activist and a strong believer in promoting equality, diversity, and inclusion through education and practice. And he is currently the chair of Ulster University's BAME network. So yes, I can see everybody has muted themselves, so thank you very much. And I'm going to ask James to unmute himself and to take it away, please. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Chiara, and thanks to everybody. I think my sincere appreciation goes to the organizers, that's the Human Rights Consortium, the CAJ, and the Transitional Justice Institute of Ulster University for giving me the opportunity, and actually giving Ulster the opportunity to share some few ideas on the topic of today. And I think the theme for my short talk is Black Lives Matter, Protest and Pandemic, Education as a Catalyst for Transformation and Positive Impact on Individuals and Society. So that is the theme of my short 7 to 10 minutes presentation. Now, one thing is this: there is always the tendency for, or there is always the temptation for us to not only pigeonhole, but paint people or give people identity. Say, you see a building, you move into a building, you want to paint it, and you paint it a particular color. But no matter for how long you paint an object or a building, there comes a time when the paint comes off and the true color actually of the building is revealed. And I think we can see today that following the killing of George Floyd, and by the way, let me just state one, make a clear statement here. George Floyd is not really the first Black American, that's African American, to have been killed like that. And I'm sure he's not going to be the last to be killed like that as well. But we are all together today because we want to stop such killing. Now, and I think we are very lucky the way that his death was reported. And by the way, it was captured by a 17-year-old girl who really became traumatized and had to send it out through social media. And then people saw it, and that made people to raise their concerns, to say, look, this should not be going on. And that is why today there is an outcry throughout the world to say, this should never happen. And I shortly, even before I go, and I'll say, I think my university, that's Ulster University, is taking this very, very serious. Like if you look at the efforts of the People and Culture Directorate of Ulster University, where I think last year here they came up with the EDI strategy, even before this killing of George Floyd, the Black Lives Matter issues, they came up with a wonderful strategy, which really a lot of effort has gone into for implementation. And I know that has actually culminated to the setting up of the BAME network that is an all-inclusive network. So quickly, I will say, well, why am I talking about that? I'm talking about it because education, sometimes people do not understand or take seriously what education is. I know we talk about Western education, we talk about even Eastern education, we talk about different kinds of education. But actually, as an educationalist myself, having been to the different corners of the world, I often sit down to ponder, to say, hang on here, does it really mean that the Black, the Asian, and the minority people, or people of African descent, haven't got such thing as African education system? So that is a question I ask myself. And it was in Zambia some 6 years ago, after giving my keynote address there, I asked that question. I said, what is happening here? Is it that, because when I look at the way I have been brought up by my parents, the way I regard people around me, I say that I was never really taught that in school. I was never taught that. Even the way I'm talking to you today, whatever is coming from inside me, I was never taught that in school. I was home, I was educated at home by my parents, by my elder brothers and my sisters, and by the elders in my villages and everything else. And it is that that has actually made me the human being that I am today. It is that that makes me be able to respect any system I come across, and respect the people that I see, and respect the laws of the land, the regulations and everything. Okay, so now, but in education today, nobody looks at the education from the home. When we go to school, nobody actually tells you that the education you receive from your mother at home is so important, and it should be the one to dictate how we move on. However, let's even look at even the COVID-19 era. Where do we all have to run to? We run back home, and running back home, you have to stay with your parents, with your brothers, with your sisters, and there was a home education taking place there. And that makes me really to also say, well, the role of education is so important when it comes to Black Lives Matter, that it's not something that we have to continue. Yeah, we have to write books about it, but we have to address the conscience of people. We have to address people as people, individuals as individuals. And it is really that home education that is responsible for transformation of the individual, for transformation of communities, for transformation of society. And when I say individuals, I mean everybody really. It doesn't matter whether you are short, you are tall, you're black, you're white, or anything at all. It just doesn't matter. And then also, when I talk about communities, I'm talking of the different communities of people. You're looking at the races, the groups, organizations in our current society. Now, I know over the years, I have been in Northern Ireland for well over 33 years now. And during, well, before coming here, I was told of the troubles here and so many things. And yes, when I came here, I did keep my head down, and I have schooled in both universities. I got my degree from both, from Queen's University, lectured there before coming to Ulster. Now, the role of education that can never really be underestimated, in the sense that I have seen in different communities, and before now, I think Kiara alluded to the fact that I'm an activist. Yes, I am an activist in the sense that I was the first by the Bryson House when they did set up the MCRC, the Multicultural Resource Center, some years ago. I was the first, the chair of that group, and even we talk about racial relations legislation and NICEM and all those things. I was one of those that helped to set up NICEM, and so the role of education is so important. And I know going around schools, I do take time to visit schools around the place, whether primary schools or secondary schools, to tell them African stories, because all the African stories that I was brought up with is something that helped to mold my moral take on life, really. For example, trying to be honest, or trying to be good, trying to be a good citizen for the good of all, and so on and so forth. So in visiting schools, I know how children, pupils in schools, how they quickly latch on to stories, and they want to know about Africa, they want to know about Asia, they want to know about different parts of the world, and they want to know about the different things. So education is the key. We talk about education for mutual understanding. And the reason why I'm saying education is if for a properly educated person, or in fact for all people really, there are three things in life that you want to push for. And that is you are pushing for recognition. You want to be recognized. You want to be acknowledged. Also you want to be accepted. And now education is one of those things that will actually allow you to achieve those things. However, if you look at for the BAME community, that's the BAME community, the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities, those that individuals and communities that are successful, what do? They have inbuilt in themselves the general fear of being identified. They don't want to be identified. Also, there is the strong fear of not being seen. They don't want to be seen. Sorry, you say, oh, James was here. No, don't say I was here, please. Don't say I made this statement. Don't say I did this. Don't say I do that. Why? Because there's that fear of not, don't let me be seen or be heard. Also, they don't want to be recognized because they are easily singled out. And it's, how will I put it? It's the way we are portraying these communities of people. There is also the need, education will help. How do we begin to address some of these issues? We address these issues by developing and implementing realistic policies that promotes well-being, policies that promotes prosperity, that promotes economic growth and sustainability and progress. And this is where really I stand to praise very, very strongly too, the provision of Ulster University with their EDI strategy and also the formation of the BAME network, because their take on it is not a very simple take, is how will I put it, an honest take. And they are standing with myself and the network in order to move things ahead. And so if you watch that space at Ulster, many, many things are coming when we talk about the Black Lives Matter and so many initiatives that are being developed for implementation. The implementation of these policies, they've got to be thought of and executed with, how will I put it? You've got to recognize the practical implications of the implementation of these policies, whether at home, that is transfer of what has been learned in school, to the home, or what has been learned at home in school. Also, I think you've got to consider the economic implementation, the standard of living for individuals, the families and the communities. Also socially, if you are educated, you are not afraid to interact or communicate with anyone. One, because, why is that? Because you are confident in yourself. And that self-confidence shows in the way you respect people when you speak to them, shows in the way you express your thoughts. Bearing in mind that you've got to respect the way other people are thinking and want to express themselves as well. So education is the key here. And also politically as well. People talk about political correctness. As an educated person or someone that has embraced education, you're not afraid to interact with people with different political opinions or views, because you are
just
there.
1 minute.
Oh, yes. So also national and international interactions as well. And I think here quickly, I would like to distinguish between education and schooling. You go to school to collect certificates. There is no problem with that, which gives you a badge of honor in society and allows you to be able to show off that, yes, you've gone through a particular system. But you obtain education, in order to be able to live life to the full, the way you need to live life to the full. So going forward, and finally, for just the last few seconds, is I think we need to consider decolonizing the curriculum. And I think Ulster has already started work in that arena. Also, we need to, going forward, we need to seek to understand, to identify and reward real skills, embedding these real skills at home and in society. And I think also, finally, going forward, we need to have a clear value for life. And when I say life, real life. Thank you for your attention.